disguised as a serpent. Satan tempted Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, leading to humanity's downfall. But the archangel turned devil wasn't done just yet. Banished from paradise, mankind became separated from God, and Satan continued his eternal quest to destroy God's work. Thus, the story of Adam and Eve and the battle between good and evil began. And these are the most horrific demons of Judeo-Christianity who carried out the devil's work. One of the scariest and most famous is the devil himself, Lucifer. You may know him through his many names, including Hallel, Satan, and of course, the devil. So, back in the day, he was a powerful archangel, but he rebelled against God and was kicked out of paradise. His ego was sky high, aiming to set up shop on a throne even higher than God's, thinking he could run the show better. So, he convinced a few other angels to join his side in a battle against heaven. But guess what? Archangel Michael, the head of God's angels' crew, was against it. They fought it out, with Lucifer even morphing into a massive dragon and wielding a flaming sword. Many would think that transforming into a dragon would help him win, but that wasn't God's plan. Long story short, Lucifer got his wings handed to him by Michael, thanks to some divine backup from the big man upstairs. That led Lucifer and his group getting banished to hell. After this, Lucifer's appearance changed. Once shining bright like the sun, now he turned dark and evil, like a shadow that just swallows everything in its path. But despite his fall from grace, he somehow managed to have both demonic and angelic powers, making him a double threat to both heaven and us mortals. In the power rankings, Lucifer's up there, only trailing behind Satan himself. But he's not the only one stirring up trouble against God and the archangels. There's also Lilith. She's a big part of Jewish texts, known for her rebellion and thirst for payback. So, according to this old tale about the first Eve, Lilith was made by God from the same material as Adam, meant to be his equal in the Garden of Eden. But when Adam wanted her to follow his orders as asked by God, Lilith was having none of it. When she realized that following Adam's orders was what God wanted from her, she decided to leave the Garden of Eden, looking for some independence from Adam and God's rule. And obviously, that was not what God wanted. He sent 3 angels, Sanoi, Sansanoi, and Semengalath, to fetch her back. But Lilith wasn't budging an inch. Then, things get dark. The angels dropped an ultimatum. They'd sacrifice 100 of her kids every day as punishment for her defiance. And that didn't sit right with her. She took on a sinister role and is now linked to the tragic deaths of babies like stillbirths and crib deaths. She didn't like what God and the angels had in store for her, and in revenge, she unleashed her fury on innocent kids as payback for her own suffering. Pretty messed up, if you ask me. Lilith is a dark force to be reckoned with, and when she caught wind of Adam moving on with Eve, well, let's just say she was not thrilled. As a revenge, she sneaked into Adam's dreams, seduced him while he's snoozing, and snagged his seed to birth her own brand of demons called Lilium to replace the kids she lost. Even now, it has been said that she's linked to the death of babies. But even more chilling than Lilith's story is that of the Antichrist. So in Christian belief, there's this figure known as the Antichrist, who's basically the complete opposite of Christ. He's supposed to come onto the scene, ruling with all sorts of cruelty just before the whole last judgment. They've got all these names for him, like the Man of Sin and Son of Perdition. According to the prophecies, he's going to show up at a time when people have lost their faith, and he's going to pull off some slick tricks to fool them. even claiming to be God himself and setting up shop in God's temple. Sounds like his rule is going to be all about arrogance and disrespect toward the big man upstairs. But listen to this. Jesus Christ is going to come in and put an end to his tyrannical reign. Yeah, the return of Christ spells doom for the Antichrist, as he gets smacked down by the divine power radiating from Christ's presence. And get this, the Antichrist's rule is supposed to last about 3.5 years, just a blip on the cosmic timeline. Now, here's where it gets intense. While Christ headed to Jerusalem and got a mixed reception, the Antichrist is going to be greeted with open arms by the Jewish crowd, who'll be all starstruck by him. He's going to go full steam ahead, overseeing the rebuilding of the temple and acting like he's the rightful heir to Solomon's throne, totally disrespecting the roles of priests and kings in the process. And his influence? Oh, it's going to be worldwide, convincing leaders left and right to hop on his bandwagon while giving Christians a real hard time. Those who dare to stand against him are in for a rough ride, facing all sorts of torment as he does everything in his power to maintain control. But don't worry, there's a bit of hope in his grim tale. Two legendary figures, Enoch and Elijah, who dodged death and got sent to an earthly paradise, are going to show up and call out the Antichrist's nonsense, offering some comfort to the chosen few. But in a twist of fate, the Antichrist is going to go full villain mode and off them, trying to squash any opposition to his rule. And just when you think it couldn't get any crazier, Christ will come back and put an end to the Antichrist's shenanigans for good. After that showdown, there's going to be a bit of a breather before the whole last judgment thing kicks off, and the world as we know it wraps up. Now, if all that had you feeling a bit uneasy, you might want to brace yourself for what comes next. Yep, we're talking about Beelzebub. Famously known as the fallen angel associated with flies, pestilence, and famine, he has a major position as one of the 7 princes of hell. He commands authority over the powers of the air and stands as a formidable leader within the realm of darkness. Originally among the esteemed seraphim, Beelzebub has since assumed a position of supreme leadership in hell. In Catholic demonology, Beelzebub is often grouped with Lucifer and Leviathan as one of the primary 3 angels to have fallen from grace. Now, we know what you're thinking. Isn't this the same guy as Satan? Well, let me clear it up for you. He's often confused with Satan, and although their names may be used interchangeably at times, they are separate entities. Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant to Lucifer and maintains unwavering loyalty to the morning star. Scholars commonly link Beelzebub to the sins of pride or gluttony, and he is regarded as the prince of false deities. What's scarier is that he is also linked to flies, and in famous imagery, you'd see him surrounded by these insects, and in certain interpretations, he is even said to be capable of manifesting as them. Down in the fiery depths of hell, Beelzebub stands out as one of the big shots among demons, second only to Satan and Lucifer when it comes to power and sway. Back in the day, during that wild war up in heaven, Beelzebub was right in the thick of it, throwing down against legions of angels with his sheer might. But even with all that muscle, he couldn't hold his ground against the relentless onslaught from the heavenly forces. In the end, he got handed a defeat. But Beelzebub and Lucifer weren't the only ones rebelling against God. And if these demons aren't scaring you yet, you should like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Abaddon did something similar to Beelzebub and Lucifer. As mentioned in the Bible, he's often referred to as the angel of a bottomless pit. This means he's associated with a place of great depth or emptiness. In addition to this title, he is also depicted as the ruler of a swarm of locusts, which are described as resembling horses, but with unique features like human faces, long hair, wings, and tails that can sting. Now, when it comes to Abaddon's identity, there's some debate. Some interpretations suggest that he is a fallen angel, which means he was once a heavenly being but rebelled against God and was cast out. This would place him in a peculiar position between what is considered good and evil. What's really interesting about Abaddon is the dual nature of his role. On one hand, he's seen as administering judgment on behalf of God, which means he's responsible for bringing consequences to people's actions. But at the same time, there are stories that suggest he sided with Lucifer, the devil, in a war against heaven. So there you have it. From Lilith's revenge-filled nature to the impending arrival of Antichrist, those were some of the most horrific demons of Judeo-Christianity. But if you want to find out more about some of the most awful princes of hell, make sure to click on this next video.